The tea scalded my face, and for a moment, all I could register was pain. But it wasn't the physical burn that hurt the most. It was the look in Toby's eyes as he threw it at me. Cold, calculating, as if I were nothing more than an obstacle to be removed. "My life would be easier without you in the way," he spat, towering over me as I crumpled to the floor, clutching my burning cheek. This wasn't the grandson I had raised after my son moved abroad. This wasn't the boy who used to curl up beside me as I read him stories. Somewhere along the way, that child had disappeared, replaced by this stranger who saw me only as a means to an end. I'm Hazel, and at 78, I never imagined I'd be afraid in my own home. The same home where I'd lived for 43 years, where I'd raised my son, weathered my husband's death, and built a life filled with cherished memories. Every corner held a story, from the height marks penciled on the kitchen door frame to the small dent in the living room wall, from when Toby had tried to practice baseball indoors at age 9. When Toby first arrived 3 months ago, I'd been overjoyed. My grandson coming to visit. I hadn't seen him in years, not since his father, my only child, had moved overseas after his divorce. I'd prepared his favorite meal and aired out the guest room, hanging fresh curtains and placing wildflowers on the nightstand. "Grandma Hazel," he'd said, hugging me with what I now realize was practiced precision. "It's been too long." I believed him then. I wanted to believe him. The first few days were pleasant enough. He asked about the neighborhood, about my routines, about how I was managing on my own. His concern seemed genuine. "You know, Grandma, this house is awfully big for just one person," he mentioned casually over dinner one evening. "Have you ever thought about moving somewhere smaller? Somewhere with assistance?" I laughed it off. This old place and I understand each other. We both creak a little, but we get by. He didn't laugh with me. As days turned into weeks, Toby's true nature began to show. The caring facade cracked, revealing glimpses of impatience, then irritation, then outright hostility. He'd criticize my cooking, mock my slow pace, blast music at all hours, and search through my belongings when he thought I was napping. I caught him once, rifling through my desk drawer where I kept important papers. "Just looking for stamps," he claimed, but the way his eyes darted away told me otherwise. That night, I heard him on the phone with someone named Luke. "She's stubborn, man. Won't even consider moving. I need that money. I'm drowning here." The next morning, a young man with slicked back hair and an artificial smile appeared at our door. "Luke Palmer, Sunset Homes for Seniors," he introduced himself, handing me a glossy brochure. "Your grandson mentioned you might be interested in our facilities." I wasn't. "I'm perfectly happy here," I told them both, trying to keep my voice steady despite the betrayal burning in my chest. That's when things really changed. Toby dropped all pretense of caring. The psychological warfare began in earnest. Subtle at first, then increasingly blatant. Items I needed would mysteriously disappear. The thermostat would be turned down in winter, up in summer. My medications would be moved just enough to make me question my memory. "You're getting confused, Grandma," he'd say with feigned concern when I confronted him. "Maybe you really do need more care than I can provide." I've never been one to give up easily. My late husband used to say I had a backbone of steel wrapped in cotton wool, soft on the outside, unbreakable within. So I endured, hoping that somewhere inside this cruel young man was still the grandson I loved. Then came the day I found him in my bedroom, holding my will, his face contorted with rage. "A charity? You're leaving almost everything to a charity?" He waved the paper in my face. "What about family? What about me?" "Toby," I said quietly, "that money will help hundreds of children get the education they need. Children like you once were. I don't care about other people's brats. I need that money. I've got debts, Grandma, serious debts. People who won't take no for an answer." The desperation in his voice frightened me. What had he gotten himself into? That night, I wrote a new will. In the morning light, with hands that trembled not from age but from resolve, I drove myself to my lawyer's office and made it official. Everything would go to charity. Not a penny to the young man who had revealed himself to be a stranger. When I returned home, Toby was waiting, Luke beside him. "Where were you?" Toby demanded. Taking care of some business, I replied, refusing to be intimidated in my own home. Luke gave me a calculating look. Mrs. Carter, your grandson is concerned about your mental state. Driving alone at your age, it's dangerous. My mental state is perfectly fine, I said firmly. Now, I believe it's time for you to leave, Mr. Palmer. This is still my house. After Luke left, Toby cornered me in the kitchen. What did you do? He hissed. I busied myself making tea, a calming ritual in a situation that was anything but calm. I made some decisions about my future. That's when he found the copy of the new will in my handbag. As he read it, his face transformed, from shock to disbelief to pure, unfiltered rage. He tore it to shreds before my eyes, scattered the pieces like confetti. "You can't do this to me," he shouted. "I've wasted months here playing nice with you." Playing nice? I echoed, the truth of our entire relationship crystallizing in those two words. I turned to pour my tea, trying to steady my breathing, searching for words that might reach whatever humanity remained in him. That's when I felt his hands on my shoulders, spinning me around. "I need that money," he growled, "and you're standing in my way." The teacup flew from my hands as he grabbed it and flung the scalding liquid into my face. Pain blossomed across my skin as I fell, the world tilting sideways. Through the burning haze, I saw him standing over me, not moving to help. A terrible calculation in his eyes. And then, mercifully, darkness came. The last thing I remember before consciousness slipped away was the sound of knocking at the front door and a familiar voice calling my name. Adam. My old friend Adam had come to visit, as he did every Wednesday afternoon. As the blackness closed in, one terrible thought consumed me. Would Toby let him in, or would he pretend no one was home while I lay dying on the kitchen floor? I came back to consciousness in fragments. First, the antiseptic smell, then the rhythmic beeping of machines, finally the dull ache across my face and chest. A hospital. I was in a hospital. "Mrs. Carter? Can you hear me?" A gentle voice, a woman in scrubs. "You're at Memorial General. You've been unconscious for almost 2 days." 2 days. My mind struggled to piece together what had happened. The tea, Toby's rage, the torn will, Adam at the door. "Adam," I whispered, my voice raspy. "Is he—" "Your friend is fine. He's the one who called the ambulance." She adjusted something on my IV. "He's been here several times to check on you. Said he'd be back this evening." "And my grandson?" I asked, though part of me didn't want to know. Something shifted in her expression. Professional caution, replacing compassion. "He's been here too." The door opened, and as if summoned by our conversation, Toby appeared. The nurse gave him a coolly appraising look before turning back to me. "I'll be right at the nurse's station if you need anything," she said, the emphasis clear. "If you need me to remove him." Once we were alone, Toby approached my bed cautiously, like someone might approach a wounded animal they themselves had hurt. Fearful not of the animal, but of confronting their own cruelty. "Grandma," he began, his voice uncharacteristically small. Dark circles hung beneath his eyes and his clothes looked slept in. "The doctors say you're going to be okay." I didn't answer. What was there to say? That I knew he'd watched me collapse and did nothing? That I understood he'd been waiting, perhaps hoping, for me to die? He sank into the chair beside my bed, hands fidgeting in his lap. I called Dad. He's trying to get a flight back. My son, Freddie. A wave of longing washed over me. It had been 3 years since I'd seen him in person. "Adam told the doctors what happened," Toby continued, still not meeting my eyes. "Or what he thinks happened. That I hurt you." "And did you?" I asked, my voice steadier than I expected. His head snapped up, eyes wide with something between shock and shame. "I was angry. I didn't mean to—" He stopped, swallowed hard. "The police want to talk to you." Of course they did. Assault of an elderly person. But the thought of pressing charges against my own grandson, of seeing him arrested, possibly imprisoned, it hollowed me out inside. "What happened to you, Toby?" I asked instead. "You were such a bright, loving child. Where did that boy go?" For a moment, something cracked in his facade. Not calculation this time, but genuine pain. That kid grew up, he said bitterly. Got into the real world where nobody cares if you're bright or loving if you can't pay your debts. What debts? I pressed. What have you gotten yourself into? He laughed, a harsh, broken sound. What haven't I? Started with a sure thing investment, cryptocurrency. Everyone was making a fortune, except me. I lost everything. Tried to win it back gambling online. Got in deeper. Then I met some guys who had a scheme selling electronics that fell off trucks, if you know what I mean. I did know. Stolen goods. It was going okay until one of them tried to get me involved in credit card fraud. I backed out, but he gestured vaguely to a fading bruise near his eye that I hadn't noticed before. They made it clear that wasn't an option. So yeah, I need money. A lot of it, fast. So you came to me, I said quietly. Not for help, but for what you could take. He had the decency to look ashamed. I thought it would be simple. You're old, living alone in that big house. I figured you'd be happy to move somewhere smaller, with people to look after you. I'd sell the house, keep a chunk for my debts, give you the rest. And when I refused, his shoulders slumped. Luke said we should wear you down, make you feel incapable, scared, that you'd eventually give in. The calculated cruelty of it stole my breath. My own grandson, conspiring to break my spirit for profit. Get out, I whispered. Grandma, get out, I repeated, pressing the call button for the nurse. I can't look at you right now. After he left, I lay there trying to reconcile the toddler who'd once climbed into my lap for comfort with the man who'd thrown hot tea in my face for money. It seemed impossible they could be the same person. Adam arrived that evening as promised, his weathered face creased with concern. At 75, he'd been my husband's best friend and had remained mine after George passed. He brought daisies, my favorite, and quiet, reassuring company. I knew something wasn't right, he said, settling his lanky frame into the visitor's chair. You stopped coming to community center events. Wouldn't invite me in for coffee when I'd stop by. Then when I heard voices arguing through the door that day, he shook his head. I'm just glad I decided to check on you. So am I admitted. He might have left me there. Adam's expression darkened. The police want a statement, Hazel. What that boy did. It's criminal. He's still my grandson. That doesn't give him the right to hurt you, to terrorize you in your own home. I knew Adam was right, but the thought of sending Toby to jail felt like another failure. Mine this time. For not seeing the signs earlier. For not finding some way to help him before it came to this. The doctor says I can probably go home in a few days, I said, changing the subject. Adam frowned. You can't go back there alone, Hazel. Not with him around. I won't be alone. Freddie is coming. The mention of my son seemed to ease Adam's concern somewhat, but he still looked troubled. You should stay with me until he arrives. I've got the spare room all made up. I reached for his hand. This dear friend who had shown more care for me than my own flesh and blood. Thank you, Adam. I'll think about it. That night, as I drifted between sleep and wakefulness, a nurse came in to check my vitals. She was young, maybe 30, with kind eyes and a gentle touch. My mother went through something similar, she said quietly as she adjusted my pillows. Her boyfriend used to make her feel crazy, hide her things, say she was too confused to manage money. It took her years to find the courage to leave. What happened? I asked. She smiled. She started over at 58, got her GED, then a nursing degree. That's why I became a nurse. Watching her rebuild her life showed me nothing's impossible. She patted my hand. Don't let anyone convince you you're helpless, Mrs. Carter. You're stronger than you know. Her words stayed with me long after she left. I'd spent months letting Toby chip away at my confidence, making me question my competence, my memory, my worth. No more. The next morning, I asked to speak with a social worker. A woman named Phoebe arrived, clipboard in hand, her no-nonsense demeanor softened by understanding eyes. I need to know my options, I told her. And I need to know how to protect myself. She nodded, pulling out brochures on restraining orders, elder abuse resources, and legal aid. The first thing to understand is that you're not alone, and what happened to you is not your fault. Part of me still feels I should have seen it coming, I confessed. Should have protected him somehow from whatever led him down this path. You can't save someone who's actively trying to harm you, Phoebe said firmly. Your safety has to come first. We talked for almost an hour. About Toby, about my home, about my rights. By the time she left, I had a plan beginning to form. That afternoon, Toby returned, hovering at the doorway as if uncertain of his welcome. He looked even worse than before. Unshaven, eyes bloodshot. Dad's flight gets in tomorrow night, he said. He wanted me to tell you. I nodded, studying him. Even now, something in me ached to comfort him, to fix whatever was broken inside him. Mother's instinct, I suppose, never quite extinguished despite everything. The police interviewed me this morning, I said instead. His face paled. Grandma, please, I know I don't deserve it, but if you press charges, You'll what? Go to jail? Face consequences for your actions? I kept my voice steady. Give me one reason why I shouldn't. He sank into the chair, head in his hands. I don't have one. What I did, there's no excuse. It was the first honest thing he'd said to me in months. I spoke with a social worker today, I continued. She helped me understand something important. I don't have to choose between protecting myself and helping you. He looked up, confusion crossing his face. I'm getting a restraining order, Toby. You won't be allowed in my home or within 100 feet of me. The blood drained from his face. Where am I supposed to go? That depends on you. I've made some calls. There's a residential treatment program that has a bed available. 6 months minimum, addiction counseling, job training, debt management. You want me to go to rehab? He sounded incredulous. I'm not an addict. Maybe not to substances, but to quick fixes, to gambling, to taking instead of earning. I leaned forward, wincing slightly at the pull of bandages on my chest. It's your choice. The program, or I press charges for assault. Anger flashed across his face, that familiar, dangerous anger, before collapsing into something else. Defeat, maybe, or the first glimmer of recognition. And what about the money? Your will, he asked, his voice hollow. That's not your concern anymore. He stood abruptly, pacing the small room like a caged animal. Those guys I owe money to. They're not patient people. They're not going to wait 6 months. That's why your first stop would be the police station. Tell them everything about these people, the credit card fraud, all of it. They can help protect you. You want me to snitch? He looked panicked now. They'll kill me. Then you'd better hope the police arrest them first. I held his gaze, refusing to waver. Those are your options, Toby. Treatment and cooperation. Or I press charges. Your choice. He stared at me for a long moment, as if seeing me clearly for the first time in months. Not as an obstacle or a means to an end, but as someone capable of standing their ground. I'll think about it, he finally said, backing toward the door. As he reached for the handle, I called out to him one last time. Toby? He paused, looking back. I don't hate you, I said softly. But I don't trust you either. Not anymore. If you want that to change, you'll have to earn it back. And that starts with making the right choice now. After he left, I closed my eyes, exhausted by the confrontation, but curiously lighter. For months, I'd been reacting, retreating, trying to survive his machinations. Now, finally, I was taking control back. My phone buzzed with a text message. Unknown number. I'm at the airport. Coming to you as fast as I can. Hold on, Mom. I love you. Freddie, my son. Coming home at last. Tears pricked at my eyes as I clutched the phone to my chest. And then, just as I was allowing myself to feel a flicker of hope, another message arrived. This one from Adam, and it froze the blood in my veins. Just drove by your house to check on things. Front door wide open. Signs of forced entry. Police on their way. Don't worry, we'll handle it. Rest and recover. My home. Someone had broken into my home, and I had a sickening suspicion who it might have been, and what they were looking for. The hospital released me the following afternoon. Against medical advice, perhaps. But I couldn't bear another night in that sterile room while strangers ransacked my home. Adam insisted on driving me, his concerned protests fading when he saw the determination in my eyes. At least let me stay with you. he said as we pulled into my driveway. Just until Freddie arrives. I nodded, too exhausted to argue and secretly grateful for his company. Yellow police tape crossed my front door like a warning. Inside, the devastation was even worse than I'd feared. Every drawer upended, every cabinet flung open, my carefully organized belongings scattered across floors and furniture. Even the framed photos that lined the hallway had been torn from walls, their glass shattered beneath my feet. They were looking for something, Adam said quietly, steadying me as I navigated the chaos. My will, I replied, or anything valuable they could sell quickly. The police officer who met us, Officer Brown, according to her badge, confirmed my suspicions. Neighbors reported seeing two men. One matches your grandson's description. The other, from what witnesses said, sounds like the real estate agent you mentioned. Luke, I said, the name bitter on my tongue. Toby's friend. She nodded, writing something in her notepad. We're looking for both of them. In the meantime, is there somewhere else you can stay? Until we secure the premises? I looked around at my violated home. The home where I'd raised my son, mourned my husband, and built decades of memories, and felt a profound weariness settle in my bones. She's staying with me, Adam interjected firmly. I've got a guest room already. We just need to grab a few of her things. I didn't protest. The thought of sleeping here, alone with shattered glass, and the lingering presence of Toby's betrayal, was more than I could bear. As I packed a small overnight bag, my fingers brushed against something hard tucked beneath my bedroom dresser. A small metal lockbox, George's old cash box, one of the few possessions I'd kept after he passed. Inside was the original copy of my will, untouched and secure. They hadn't found it after all. Officer Brown took the box for safekeeping, promising to return it once they'd processed the scene. As Adam led me back to his car, a strange sense of disorientation washed over me. For 43 years, this house had been my sanctuary. Now it felt like a crime scene. Exposed, vulnerable, no longer mine. It's just a house, Hazel, Adam said gently, as if reading my thoughts. The memories go with you. His words were kind, but I couldn't help thinking, if my home could be so easily violated, what else might I lose? Adam's cottage sat at the edge of town, surrounded by old oak trees and a garden that bloomed even in late autumn. The guest room was small but cozy, with handmade quilts and a window that caught the morning light. For the first time in months, I slept without fear. The next morning, as Adam and I shared coffee on his porch, my phone rang. Freddie. Mom, are you okay? I just landed. The police called me about the break-in. His voice, so familiar despite the years and distance, broke something loose inside me. Tears I'd been holding back since the hospital flowed freely. Through broken sentences, I told him everything. Toby's manipulation, the escalating abuse, the assault, the ultimatum I'd given him. I'm so sorry, Freddie said when I finished, his voice thick with emotion. I should have been there. I should have known what was happening. How could you have known? I wiped my eyes. I didn't even see it myself until it was almost too late. There was a painful pause. Mom, there's something I need to tell you. About Toby. About why he needed money so desperately. The confession that followed shattered what remained of my illusions. Freddie had been struggling financially for years. Failed investments, mounting debt. He'd borrowed money from loan sharks, putting their family home as collateral. When he couldn't pay, he fled overseas, leaving his son to face the consequences. Toby had been receiving threats for months, desperate messages demanding payment of his father's debts. So, you see, Freddie concluded, his voice hollow with shame. This is my fault, not yours, not even entirely Toby's. I closed my eyes, absorbing this new reality. 3 generations bound by secrets, shame, and fear. Where are you now? At the police station. They found Toby last night. My heart stuttered. Is he? He's alive. Barely. Those men he owed money to caught up with him after he broke into your house. The police found him behind that bar on Maple Street. He'd been beaten pretty badly. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Despite everything, the thought of Toby hurt made something primal and protective rise within me. Where is he now? County hospital, under police guard. He's going to be okay physically, but he's facing serious charges, Mom. Breaking and entering, elder abuse, assault. Freddie's voice broke. I'm going to see him now. Then I'll come to you. Adam texted me his address. After we hung up, I sat silent for a long time, watching leaves spiral down from Adam's oak trees. You're thinking about going to see him, aren't you? Adam asked quietly. I nodded. He's still my grandson. Hazel. Adam took my hand, his expression pained. After everything he's done, I know what he's done. I interrupted gently. Better than anyone. I'm not going to excuse it or pretend it didn't happen. I squeezed his fingers. But I need to see him, to understand, maybe to find some kind of closure. Adam studied me for a long moment, then nodded reluctantly. I'll drive you. At the hospital, a police officer stood outside Toby's room. Inside, my grandson lay pale against white sheets, his face bruised almost beyond recognition. An IV dripped steadily into his arm. When he saw me, his swollen eyes widened in shock. Grandma! His voice was a raspy whisper. I approached cautiously, the memory of his rage still raw. The doctor says you'll recover. He tried to nod, wincing with the movement. Why are you here? It was a fair question. Why had I come? To confront him? Forgive him? Or simply to see with my own eyes what had become of the boy I'd once loved so fiercely? I spoke with your father, I said instead of answering. He told me about the debts, about why you needed money. Shame crossed his battered face. Doesn't excuse what I did to you. No, I agreed. It doesn't. A tear slid down his cheek. I'm sorry, Grandma. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am. When those guys caught up with me, all I could think was that I deserved it. For what I did to you. I studied him, searching for signs of manipulation, the calculated performance I'd become so familiar with. But all I saw was raw pain and genuine remorse. The police say you're facing serious charges, I said. He closed his eyes. I know. Do you remember the choice I gave you before? Treatment or prosecution? He nodded slightly. That option is still on the table. If you agree to the residential program and testify against Luke and the men who did this to you? His eyes opened, disbelief mingling with a fragile hope. After everything? You'd still help me? I reached for the water glass on his bedside table, helping him take a small sip before answering. I'm not doing this for you, Toby. I'm doing it for that little boy I used to know, the one I believe is still in there somewhere. As I set the glass down, my fingers brushed against something familiar tucked beneath his pillow. A small, worn book with a faded blue cover, the collection of fairy tales I'd read to him as a child. The one possession he'd apparently thought to take when fleeing my home. Our eyes met, a moment of recognition passing between us. Then the door opened, and Freddie stepped in. The expression on my son's face as he looked from me to his injured child was a complex tapestry of guilt, grief, and something else. A desperate desire to make things right. As father and son saw each other for the first time in years, I quietly slipped out, giving them the privacy to begin their own painful reconciliation. In the hallway, Adam waited, concern etched in the lines of his face. Are you okay? I wasn't sure how to answer. In the space of a few days, my world had been upended, my safety threatened, my trust betrayed. And yet, standing there in that sterile hospital corridor, I felt something unexpected stirring within me. The first tentative roots of hope taking hold in shattered ground. No, I finally said, but I think someday I might be. What I didn't tell him, couldn't yet put into words, was the decision forming in my mind. A decision about my home, my will, and the life I wanted to build from these broken pieces. A decision that would change everything. The days that followed blurred together in a whirlwind of police statements, insurance claims, and difficult conversations. Freddie stayed at Adam's cottage with me, sleeping on the fold-out couch despite Adam's protests that it would ruin his back. Each morning, the three of us would share coffee on the porch, watching dawn break over the garden in companionable silence. It was during one of these quiet mornings, exactly 1 week after the break-in, that I finally voiced the decision I'd been contemplating. "I'm selling the house," I announced. Both men turned to me, surprise evident on their faces. "Are you sure?" Freddie asked carefully. "That's been your home for 43 years, I finished. "And I've loved it. But now," I paused, searching for the right words. "Now it feels like a museum of memories, both good and painful. I don't want to live surrounded by reminders of what happened." Adam nodded slowly. "Where will you go?" I took a deep breath. "There's a small apartment complex for seniors on Cedar Street, independent living but with a community. I toured it yesterday while you two were fixing my car." "Yesterday?" Freddie looked hurt. "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because I needed to make this decision for myself," I said gently. "Not based on what either of you thought was best." Understanding dawned in his eyes. For too long, others had tried to decide my future. Toby with his nursing home brochures. Luke with his manipulative sales pitch. This choice was mine alone. "What about Toby?" Freddie asked, the question we'd all been carefully avoiding. 3 days had passed since my hospital visit. Toby had been discharged into police custody and was now in county jail awaiting arraignment. The district attorney had agreed to consider a diversion program instead of prison time, but only if I supported it. "I've spoken with his public defender," I said. "I'm willing to advocate for the treatment option, but with conditions. He must commit to the full 6-month program. Complete financial transparency, regular check-ins with a probation officer, and—" I hesitated. The hardest part still difficult to say aloud. "And I need time and space. No contact unless I initiate it." It was a painful boundary to set, but a necessary one. Whatever healing might be possible between us couldn't begin until Toby took responsibility for his actions and I processed my own trauma. Freddie reached for my hand. "I understand, and I support whatever you decide." He swallowed hard. "Mom, I'm so sorry I wasn't here. That I left both of you to deal with my mistakes. We all have regrets, Freddie. The question is what we do next." Later that afternoon, as Adam drove me to meet with a real estate agent, I found myself looking at my town with new eyes. The bakery where I'd bought Toby's birthday cakes. The park where I'd taught him to ride a bike. The community center where I'd led book clubs for years before Toby's arrival made me too ashamed to face my friends. "You could start coming to the center again," Adam said, following my gaze. "Everyone's been asking about you." "I'm not sure I'm ready for all the questions." "They're your friends, Hazel. They care about you." I nodded, knowing he was right. Isolation had made me vulnerable to Toby's manipulation. Community might be my strongest protection against future harm. "Maybe I'll start with the Thursday morning coffee group," I conceded. "Small steps." Adam smiled, a warmth in his eyes that made me feel both comforted and oddly nervous. "Small steps," he agreed. The real estate agent, a brisk woman named Marion, met us at my house. The police tape was gone, and Adam had helped me clean up the worst of the damage, but the place still felt wounded somehow. "The market's good right now," Marion said as we walked through the rooms. 3 bedrooms, established neighborhood, good schools. I could have this sold within a month. I nodded, trying to focus on the practical details rather than the emotion threatening to overwhelm me. In the kitchen, where Toby had thrown the tea, where I had collapsed, I paused, breathing deeply. "Are you okay?" Adam asked quietly. "Yes," I said, surprising myself by meaning it. This house has seen 43 years of living. Some of it wonderful, some of it terrible, but it's just walls and floors in the end. The memories, good and bad, I carry with me. Marion, sensing the moment, excused herself to make some calls on the porch. "You're remarkable, Hazel," Adam said once we were alone. "Most people would be broken by what you've been through." "I've had my moments," I admitted, "but I refuse to be defined by the worst thing that's happened to me." He reached for my hand, his touch hesitant but warm. "I've been wanting to tell you something. For a while now, actually." There was an emotion in his voice I hadn't heard before. Vulnerability mingled with determination. "George and I used to talk, you know, about what would happen if one of us went first. He made me promise to look after you. Not that you needed looking after," he added quickly, "but to be there, as a friend." "You've kept that promise," I said. More than kept it. The thing is, his eyes met mine, earnest and a little nervous. It stopped being about a promise to George a long time ago. For years now, it's been because He broke off, seeming to search for courage. Because I care for you, Hazel. More than as just a friend. The confession hung between us, unexpected and yet somehow not surprising at all. In the quiet kitchen where so much pain had occurred, something new and tender was taking root. Before I could respond, my phone rang. Freddie. Mom, he said without preamble, his voice tight with emotion. Toby's arraignment just finished. The judge approved the diversion program. He's being transferred to the treatment center tomorrow. Relief washed through me. Did you see him? How is he? Subdued, ashamed. But I think he's grateful for this chance. Freddie paused. He asked me to tell you something. He said, "Tell Grandma I'm going to earn back her trust, even if it takes the rest of my life." The words settled in my heart, not as a balm exactly, but as a first small stone in a foundation that might someday be rebuilt. I ended the call and turned back to Adam, who waited patiently, his expression a question. "Good news," I told him. "Toby's going to treatment." He nodded, relief evident on his face. "And the other thing? What I said before?" I looked around the kitchen one last time, at the space where my old life had shattered, and made another decision. Taking a step forward, I placed my hand on his cheek. I said softly, "it's time for both of us to stop living in the past." The smile that bloomed across his face was like sunshine breaking through clouds. As we left the house, Marion approached with paperwork in hand. "So, Mrs. Carter, shall we list it?" I signed the forms with steady hands, each signature a step toward my new beginning. But as I handed back the pen, a text message arrived that made my blood run cold. "The men who hurt Toby are still out there, and they know who you are. Luke." Luke's text message shattered the momentary peace I'd found. My hands trembled as I showed the phone to Adam, whose expression darkened immediately. "We need to call the police," he said, already pulling out his own phone. I nodded, but a deeper realization was settling in my chest. This wasn't over. Perhaps it never would be, as long as Luke remained free. The next 24 hours passed in a blur of police statements and security precautions. Detective Rivera, a no-nonsense woman with compassionate eyes, took the lead on the case. "We've been trying to locate Luke Palmer since the break-in," she explained as we sat in Adam's living room. "He's wanted for questioning in multiple fraudulent real estate schemes targeting seniors, not just his involvement with your grandson." "Do you think the threat is credible?" Freddie asked, his arm protectively around my shoulders. "We have to assume it is," Rivera replied. "These loan sharks don't mess around, but we also need to consider that Palmer could be trying to manipulate Mrs. Carter again, perhaps hoping she'll drop the charges against him out of fear. Either way, the police increased patrols around Adam's cottage and advised me not to return to my house alone. They also stationed an officer at the treatment facility where Toby would be transferred the next morning. That night, I barely slept, Luke's words echoing in my mind. "They know who you are." The implication was clear. My safety was now entangled with the criminal world Toby had stumbled into. Just before dawn, exhausted from worry, I made a decision. I needed to see Luke, to look into the eyes of the man who had helped orchestrate my abuse and now threatened my family, to understand what we were truly facing. When I told Freddie and Adam my plan over breakfast, they both objected strenuously. "Absolutely not," Freddie said. "It's too dangerous." "He's manipulative and desperate," Adam added. "You can't trust anything he says." "I'm not suggesting meeting him alone," I clarified. "I want Detective Rivera to arrange it, in the police station, with officers present." They exchanged concerned glances. "Mom, why would you put yourself through that?" Freddie asked softly. I thought about his question carefully before answering. "Because I'm tired of being afraid, of being a victim. For months, I let Toby and Luke make me feel helpless in my own home. I won't give Luke that power again." To my surprise, it was Adam who finally nodded in understanding. "You need to reclaim your agency," he said. "I get that. But we're coming with you." Detective Rivera was reluctant, but eventually agreed to my request. They had been trying to locate Luke for questioning anyway. Now they would have a way to draw him out. "We'll set strict parameters," she assured me. "The meeting will be monitored. If at any point you feel uncomfortable, just say the word garden, and we'll end it immediately." 2 days later, seated in a small interview room at the police station, I waited nervously. Adam and Freddie watched from behind a one-way mirror, along with Rivera and another detective. The door opened and Luke entered, flanked by 2 officers. He looked nothing like the slick, confident realtor who had once handed me glossy brochures for senior living facilities. His designer clothes had been replaced by a rumpled shirt and jeans. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and several days' worth of stubble covered his jaw. "Mrs. Carter," he said, surprise evident in his voice as he sat across from me. "I didn't expect to see you here." "I got your text," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "About the men who hurt Toby." Something flickered across his face. Triumph, perhaps, at knowing his message had hit its mark. "So you understand the danger you're in." "What I understand," I said carefully, "is that you're trying to frighten me. The question is why?" He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Those guys don't mess around, Mrs. Carter. They want their money, and they think Toby hid it with you. There is no money. Toby came to me because he needed money, not because he had it." Luke's expression shifted subtly. "Maybe, but they don't know that. So tell them." He laughed, a harsh sound without humor. "You think they'd believe me? I'm just the middleman. I introduced Toby to them when he was desperate. That's all. For a cut of the profits, I guessed." He shrugged, not bothering to deny it. "Business is business." I studied him, this man who had helped my grandson terrorize me, who had seen my vulnerability as an opportunity for exploitation. "What do you want, Luke? Why contact me now?" His facade cracked slightly. "I need to disappear for a while. These guys, they blame me for Toby talking to the cops. I need money to get away, start fresh somewhere else." Finally, the truth emerged. This wasn't about protecting me. It was about saving himself. "So that's what this is about," I said quietly. "You thought if you scared me enough, I'd pay you off." "It's not just about the money," he insisted, an edge of desperation entering his voice. "They really are looking for you. I could help you. Tell them you don't have what they want. In exchange for 20,000. Enough to get me out of town, set up somewhere new." I allowed myself a small, sad smile. "You haven't changed at all, have you? Still looking for the easy way out? Still willing to exploit others to get it?" He stiffened. "You don't understand the kind of people we're dealing with." "Oh, I think I do." I stood up, smoothing my skirt with hands that no longer trembled. "The police already know everything about them, thanks to Toby's cooperation. They're building a case right now." Panic flashed across his face. "You don't—" "This meeting is over, Luke. I came here to see if there was any truth to your warning, any genuine concern for the damage you helped cause." I shook my head. "But it's just more manipulation, more lies." As I turned to leave, he called after me, his voice rising. "You're making a mistake. They know where to find you." I paused at the door, looking back one last time. "Garden," I said clearly, signaling to Rivera that I was done. The detectives entered immediately, informing Luke that he was being charged with extortion, conspiracy, and elder abuse. As they read him his rights, I walked out without looking back. In the hallway, Freddie and Adam waited, concern etched on their faces. "Are you okay?" Freddie asked, pulling me into a hug. "Better than okay," I replied and meant it. "Awesome." 2 months later, I stood in my new apartment, placing a framed photo on the mantel. Not of Toby or Freddie, but of myself at the community garden I'd joined. Dirt on my hands and a smile on my face. The apartment was smaller than my house had been, but it felt right. Bright and open, with windows that caught the morning light and neighbors who checked in regularly. I'd kept only the possessions that brought me joy, donating the rest. The sale of my house had closed quickly, the proceeds now safely invested to provide for my future. A small portion had gone to a newly established fund at the women's shelter, my way of helping others who might be facing what I had endured. Toby remained in treatment, his progress steady according to his counselors. We exchanged letters, his full of remorse and careful hope, mine encouraging but clear about the boundaries I needed. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a beginning. Freddie had extended his stay, renting a small apartment nearby and finding work as a consultant. Our relationship was healing too, strengthened by honest conversations about the past and shared meals where we rediscovered the joy of simply being together. The men who had threatened Toby were now in custody, their operation dismantled by a police investigation that spanned 3 states. Luke had accepted a plea deal, providing evidence against them in exchange for a reduced sentence. The fear that had shadowed me for weeks gradually receded, like a tide going out. And then there was Adam. Our relationship had blossomed slowly, cautiously, both of us mindful of the friendship we didn't want to lose. Weekend drives along the coast, Tuesday movie nights, his hand finding mine as we walked through the farmer's market. "Ready?" he asked now, appearing in my doorway with a picnic basket in hand. It was our 3-month anniversary, not of meeting, of course, but of that moment in my kitchen when everything had changed. "Almost," I replied, adjusting the photo one last time. He came to stand beside me, looking at the image. "You look happy there." "I am happy," I said simply. As we left for our picnic, I locked my door, a simple act I no longer took for granted. The hallway was filled with the sounds of my neighbors' lives. Music playing, children visiting, the book club meeting in the community room. Outside, spring was erupting in a riot of color and renewal. I breathed deeply, savoring the scent of fresh beginnings. "You know," I said as Adam took my hand, "I've been thinking about writing my story down. Not just for myself, but for other women who might be going through something similar." He smiled. "I think that's a wonderful idea. Your strength could help so many people." Strength. Such a simple word for such a complex journey. I had been broken. Yes. But in that breaking, I had discovered parts of myself I never knew existed. The pieces I'd gathered and reassembled were stronger at their mended places, like the Japanese art of kintsugi that repairs pottery with gold. As Adam and I walked toward the park, I felt the warmth of the sun on my face and thought, this is what survival looks like. Not just existing after trauma, but building something new and beautiful from the shattered pieces. My name is Hazel, and this is my life now. Reclaimed, rebuilt, and finally, truly my own.